This is a terrible, terrible position. Oh, we got 13 people on Facebook Live. Okay. Hello, Peter. Okay. Right. I'm going to stop peering down into the camera now. And yeah, okay. So welcome everyone that has joined us for the build along today. We're just about on time. It's 1 minute to 8. We're going to wait for some more people to join in the stream. We'll keep an eye on that. We are going to be inviting people into the Zoom room as we go, just to show you, so you can show us where you're up to with your build so far as we build together. So stay tuned for that. We'll give you a link to the Zoom room as and when. So good evening, Josh. Good evening, Chris. How's it going?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, sir. I'm very well.
Doing lovely. Hope everybody's doing great today.
Yeah, I mean, it's been kind of busy just getting ready for this. I've been picking my colors and sorting out my templates all day.
Be a really bad time to tell you that I haven't chosen any colors.
Oh, that's a really bad time. Yeah, I mean, come on, we need some colors, man.
Oh, I've got colors in mind, don't worry.
Okay, cool. So let's see how many people we've got and if we are ready to go. Yeah, I mean, we've got 13 on Facebook, 3 on YouTube. I think the majority of people are watching on, they're watching us on the Facebook Live, which is good. Okay. So if any of you comment to any of us, just bear in mind that myself and Josh will be building and Chris is going to be monitoring the streams. So if we don't reply to you straight away, then apologies, but Chris is going to keep us informed of the questions that come through. So if you have any as we go, then please feel free to ask. And if you want to request a specific camera angle, then we've got multiple cameras set up, both me and Josh. So yeah, let's do some building. Josh, I'm going to hand over to you, and you can talk us through where we're going to start and get going.
Perfect. Well, hello everyone. This is the kite that you may have seen that we're going to be building over the next about 6 weeks. I hope everybody's downloaded the plans. The templates should be available, have been available for a few days. So yeah, today we're going to focus on purely cutting and sticking the panels. That should take up about the hour. I'm going to explain the processes that I use, and we'll work through that. Yeah, and as the weeks go on, you'll see more and more of this kite as it starts to come to life. I'm going to start by saying that these are the methods I use, but not necessarily the right methods for everyone. So take what I say, you can bin it off if you don't think that's the best option for you, or you can use it if you think that, you know what, it might work for you. So yeah, if we can switch to the overhead camera.
Yeah, and as you do that, Josh, what I'll ask you to do is just go through a rundown of what people should have, like implements and all the ingredients that they need in front of them, so they can run around in the next couple of minutes desperately searching to turf them out.
Absolutely. Right, so yeah, so like I said before, this is what we're going to be building over the next 6 weeks. Just get rid of that. So what I've got, what I need for today, under the table you can see I have my sail fabric. I'm using Icarex, but any sail fabric will do. I've got the templates, and across here, so again, any cutting instrument, I'm using a scalpel, fresh blades for the scalpel. I have a small pair of scissors, 2 rulers, and the tip templates, which were also in the template pack. And some adhesive for sticking the sail together. I've also got a roll of Dacron, which we will be needing today. We'll be cutting the reinforcements for the sail today. And of course, it was in the list, Red Bull, and it will be used.
Yeah, you've got more cans than any human should drink in an hour there. It's not a recommendation to everyone else watching. Josh is superhuman and he can take it.
Yeah, I'm not an advocate for everybody drinking 4 cans of Red Bull in an hour. Yeah. So
we don't need to fill A&Es across the land.
They're already full enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I said I've got metal rulers. I've got a 30 centimeter ruler, which we'll be using a lot of, but I've also got longer metal rules, which will be coming in handy. If you've got longer metal rules available, I suggest you get them. You will find them helpful throughout the process of this build. Give everybody a couple of minutes now just to do some last minute running around, and we'll talk about something if you like. Just give everybody a couple of minutes to grab what they need.
Yeah, okay.
Cool.
Let's get some comments going. So if everyone's got all their stuff together, just comment, tell us you're ready, and we can progress.
Nice one. I'm going to start.
People asking for the YouTube link. Yeah, everyone that's a bit confused, YouTube right at the last minute let us down on the live stream, and actually the On the Line kiting page hadn't been accepted to do live streaming today, which is a massive disappointment. However, luckily I have a old YouTube channel that I have previously done streaming on, which we are currently using, and yes, it is Cowboy Vids. So if we are directing you to Cowboy Vids and not On the Line, you know why. And I will be moving the video from there to On the Line in the near future so that you can catch up and see what we've done.
Okay, so for reference, for today, what I'll be making is I'll be making this kite again, but instead of the fluorescent pink and the midnight blue, I'll be having fluorescent yellow on the outside of the colors.
Ooh, lovely.
So when I'm referring to the panels in regards to which sail fabric I'm using, you'll understand. We will not need mesh today unless you're building a vented version. But I'm building a standard. Matt, what are you building?
I am building a standard.
Okay.
Although now that I've managed to weed all the plans out of you, I can see myself making 10 of these for me and Jen, so that we both have a full set, because now that I've got the plans laid out in front of me, it's seriously a really good looking kite.
Hey, I was very forthcoming with these plans.
Oh, no. You were forthcoming. You put in a lot of effort to get these right, but now I have them in my hot little hands. I can make mini pulses.
Yeah. Right. Shall we make a start?
I think we should make a start. So,
Fantastic.
What panel are we going for first?
So what we're going to do, we're going to work our way from the inside of the kite to the outside. So we're going to do all the C panels first, starting with C1, and then we're actually going to do it in reverse order. So we're going to go C panels, B panels, A panel,
okay,
just to be confusing.
Excellent.
So for the time being, if you want to take your B panels and your A panel, you can just discard them for the minute because they're not required right now.
No, but don't bin them because you will need them.
Yes, absolutely do not bin them. And the same for the rest of the C panels. You only currently need C1.
So C1, I've written down because I'm a complete dunce and I'm not very good at remembering anything. I've had to write down what all my panels relate to. So I've got a nice little reminder here. C1 is red times 2.
I actually write on the panels what color they are going to be. So I've got white, but I haven't wrote down times 2 because that's just not required, really.
It might not be required for you with your nice young brain. However, Yeah, I've got a few years on you, and I need everything I can get.
Well, no, you'll see in a minute why you shouldn't have wrote ×2 because it might confuse you. But
Oh, right,
never mind,
okay.
we'll get there.
All right. We will see. Yes, for sure.
Right. So on everybody's panels, you should see there's a little hash symbol. It's not very clear on that camera. So the directions of the hash correlate to the direction of your, I assume everybody's using Icarex or ripstop, the weave of the fabric. So looking at the Icarex here, you can see that there's a clear weave in the larger squares. So you're going to match that hash to the direction of the fabric. So starting with C1, I'm going to take the white Icarex, which is going to be cut, and I'm actually going to fold it over. Because what I like to do is to make sure the panels are more exact than cutting them separately, I cut them both at the same time. So I like to measure out to make sure that I can get the panel out of the fold first. And then once you know that you're going to get both panels out of this fold, you can run your hand along and form a crease so that the fabric isn't going to move when you're cutting it. So again, once you've got the clear amount that you need, take your ruler, put the crease in there.
So we're just lining up. So on the fold, we line up the lines as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always fold so that the weave of the fabric is completely mirrored. So it's exactly the same.
Okay. All right. And then we put a sharp crease in.
Sharp crease. You can iron that in with a ruler. So again, I'm cutting with a scalpel, but you can use a soldering iron or a rotary cutter, or even just a sharp knife if that's what you prefer. But yeah, I use a scalpel because I find it gives myself a cleaner cut. Okay, so once you've folded over your Icarex or your ripstop, align your hash with the direction of the symbol, direction of the fabric. And you're going to cut in a form where I like to reduce wastage. So I can see that obviously this tiny section of Icarex here is going to be wasted, but then I'm saving a much bigger section which I can use for something else. So once you're ready to cut, you're going to take your paperweight, or in my case, the Red Bull, stick it on there so that your template doesn't move. Then you're going to take your steel rule and you're going to align it with the edge of the template. So notice how the rule is on the inside of the template, so that if you do slip and you cut off away, you're not cutting into the panel you're cutting away from it, so you're not wasting the panel. So
you're basically creating a gap between the ruler and the template. Is that right?
No. So if you look at the template,
oh, okay, yeah.
The front camera, you see.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah.
So this is obviously the edge of the template.
Yeah.
You're aligning the ruler right on the edge of that template.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, once your rule's in place, firm grip down, making sure that it's still aligned. Take your blade or your soldering iron or whatever you're using, and then firmly press. Now I like to run 3 times just to make sure that cut has in fact happened. So then it's a repeat process all the way around. So for the next cut, you can see that actually the rule isn't long enough to make the full edge of the panel. And that's fine. You can do it in steps if you prefer to do it that way. But if you want a cleaner cut, this is where a longer rule comes in quite handy. So you're aligning the edge. And again, nice firm pressure all the way along. Now you can already see that.
Do you ever use tape to keep the template in position as you're moving around from one cut to the other, so that it doesn't actually move offline once you've made your first cut, for example?
I personally don't, but I've had a lot of practice at this, so I'm pretty confident about keeping the panel in place. But sometimes a panel template will slip, and there's absolutely no way you can avoid that. And what you've got to do in that instance is just use the best of your ability to realign the template with the Icarex.
Yeah.
But yeah, normally because I find there's sometimes a bit of static between the two panels. So actually the panels themselves are locked together, and it's just the template which unaligns itself.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. What's also good is, and I've never been very good at this, but my desk is flush to the wall, and I'm right-handed, which makes it quite awkward to turn and get this angle for the next cut. So sometimes if you have a gap between your bench and the wall and you have a full 360 access, that's sometimes quite helpful, but that's not something I've personally done.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So again, aligning that straight rule with the edge. Turn so you can get a nice pressure. Right, there you go. So I've immediately snapped the blade. Sod's law. But that's actually good because, so I snapped the blade, but I snapped it into the metal rule. Therefore, I haven't damaged the panel that I'm already cutting.
So you're just demonstrating.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Why you
perfectly intentional.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
So,
that's very thoughtful of you.
So you can just check the edge, make sure that it actually hasn't slipped off the template, nothing's moved. And in fact, it hasn't. So you just continue your cut.
All right, Josh, while you're doing that, I'm going to sneak in some questions here and there.
Go for it, mate.
For my first one, I'd like to know what inspired this current Mini.
Honestly, we needed a kite for a workshop. And I thought it'd be quite fun to have a smaller version of the Pulse, which could just effectively be a toy. Just to jump back into what I was saying before. So I've gone all the way around that template using the same method on each side. Obviously, this panel has 4 sides. So now I know that the cut's been successful because you can lift away the excess. So from there, remove your template, and you should have 2 perfectly identical panels.
I have followed. I have my 2 identical red panels.
Perfect. There you go. So, guess what we're going to do now?
Are we going to cut out some more panels?
We're going to completely do the rest of the C panels. And once we're at the C panels, I'll explain how to do the longer panels and including the curved panels.
Okay. So we're gonna crack on, and we're just going to, under our own steam, continue making the panels as we go. Now I have to jump to a C5 because I'm on red still, and it'd be really convenient if I could just put the red away. Now, does the C5 count as a longer panel? Can we give a tip for that, or do you want to wait for the Bs?
I will also do my C5 panel and explain, well, effectively the process is the same using a longer ruler if you've got the option.
Yeah.
But yes, I will also do the C5 panel.
That's very kind of you.
Absolutely. So you can see here that I've actually already cut into this fabric, and there's quite a bit of fabric gone from this side. So it's all about whether I can fit this panel into this section. And a really, really easy way of doing that, just stick it in there. It's obvious, but sometimes people assume that because you've cut into it, you need to cut a fresh piece of Icarex, and it's not necessary. Yeah. But again, the process is the same. So folding over, and you can be really quite tight with the margins that you leave on your fold, because you can see that this one is just literally just fitting on the edge there.
Yeah.
So I know that's going to be enough space. So I'm ironing in the crease. same as before.
So on the C5 panel, my ruler is quite thick.
Okay.
And if I just show you here what I'm just working out. Now, I'm a complete novice builder.
Yeah.
Okay, so my worry is that because it's quite thick, I can't really put my weight down on it anywhere to hold it in place when I lift the ruler off. So what I'm actually going to do is just take my handy dandy masking tape, and I'm just going to dot a few pieces that I can cut through, but as I'm moving, it will hold the rest of it in place. Is that a good way of doing it, or do you have an alternative?
I mean, that's not personally the way I would do it, but that option is perfectly acceptable. If that's the way that you find you can get a more stable cut, that's absolutely fine.
Talk us through how you would do it faced in my situation.
Okay, so on a basis of you couldn't use a weight because there just isn't the space.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll do it. I'll demonstrate it. So your panel's in place. You know that that's where you're going to make your cut. Okay, so I would myself go to a longer rule, and you're using a longer rule, Matt, am I right?
Yeah.
So you're putting your rule in place. And already you can tell that this is going to be quite slippery without the paperweight.
Yeah.
So you've got your first cut lined up. Make sure the blade's still sharp. That one hasn't. Another good point to add, actually, if you are using a scalpel, I change my blade pretty much every other panel.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, anyway, your edge is lined up with the panel. You know you're making your first cut. So for a longer panel, I actually use the back of the blade and start 50% along and then go back and forth. But what I would do in your circumstances, hold the template with your hand as well as you're holding the ruler, and do shorter cuts and just keep adjusting your hand to make sure that template isn't going to move.
Okay, I'm going to do it like that. I'm going to resist the urge to put tape down, and I'm going to learn from the pros. So let's make a start on that.
Okay.
So Chris, how's everyone getting on? Is there comments? Have we got some nice comments from people?
We're doing really well. We just had a good question about cold cutting versus hot cutting, and if it has any difference on the wear and tear.
Great question. And the answer to that is it is entirely on the fabric you use. I don't use ripstop at all, basically. So I'm confident in cold cutting Icarex because I know Icarex doesn't fray. But there are some fabrics that if you do cold cut them, they will fray along the edges. If you're doing rolled seams, it's not so much of a problem. But for the stick and stitch method we're going to use, there's some fabrics you shouldn't cold cut. That's a very good question.
Now, since you have already built this once before, would you recommend this as a first-time build for a complete newbie?
I think this is actually a good project to start building on because it's not that difficult to do. So back to what we were saying before, Matt. So I've made my first cut. I've got no weight down on that template at all. So there is a risk that the template's going to move. So what you're going to do is you're going to get to a point where you can actually just get your fingers on and just place the straight rule across the top of it.
Yeah.
So you can see that actually the template has moved because there is no paperweight. So what you do in that sense is you manually adjust the template back to the line which you've just cut. And it's quite clear to see.
Yeah.
You can see it really easily. So once that template's back in the position and you know you need to make your next cut, just make sure that line is still, the edge is still aligned. And then you're firm on the template. And again, just like before, nice and firm. And I'm going in shorter stints this time because, again, there's that pivot point on the template. Just want to make sure it's nice and secure.
Yeah, I really struggle with the longer panels and effectively cutting them backhanded.
Yes, and that's where being able to get a 360 access on your cutting table is absolutely essential.
Yeah, so if you can,
it's a privilege that neither of us have.
Yeah, exactly. I have to make that sacrifice for kids' toys, etc., etc. So I'll just have to put up with it today.
So I've just done the two longest cuts on this panel.
Yeah.
And now I've got the shorter cuts of the top and the bottom. But this is where it becomes a little bit more risky, because if that template moves now, you have that full realignment. And because it's tapered, 0.5 millimeter out is going to be out completely. So you have to make sure it's fully aligned. A good way to do that is just look at the top and the bottom of your template. And if the absolute edges are aligned with the two cut marks, then you know you've got still in line with where the panel should be.
Yeah.
So you can see there that these edges are perfectly aligned.
Yeah.
So I know I can make that next cut without it damaging the panel.
Yeah.
So again, like before, align the rule with the edge, nice and firm, and just cut away. And there you are. You can see clean cut. So just checking the top to make sure the panel is still aligned. It is. Lining up the edge. And cut through.
You'll be pleased to hear that I'm actually using a scalpel today, as opposed to the rotary cutter. I've ditched it.
Well, if that's your preference.
Yeah, I mean, you gave me some good advice to switch up, so I thought, well, I might as well. If I'm doing the masterclass, I might as well try it now.
Yeah, definitely. Right.
You definitely got a lot more control in the finer areas for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I did actually, when I first started making kites, I used to hot cut with the soldering iron for all my panels. But what I found was that if you melt an edge and it attaches itself to the side of the template tears. So therefore you can never reuse the template, and it actually leaves parts of the paper on the panel. It's just not nice. Anyway, So there's the two C5 panels cut. So they're ready to be added to the rest. And actually, Matt, I've just looked at the time, so I'm going to rattle through a few of these.
Yeah, for sure.
Until we get to the longer panels, and then I will explain how to do curves and full long panels.
Okay.
Chris, do you want to fire away with some more questions if you've got any?
Yes, don't mind if I do. Does the smaller size affect the sail pressure or how it changes of flight?
That's kind of two questions, really. The sail pressure, because it's a smaller kite, naturally there's less resistance to the wind, and therefore you are going to get less pull from your kite. But the characteristics of the kite, because it is smaller, it's a little bit faster and more agile. It's quite fun to fly. I wouldn't use it as a team kite because it's too twitchy for that. But for just having a play on 30-foot lines by yourself, it's great fun.
All right, tell me a little bit about the rods that you're going to use. Can I just use my rods at home from like my XP?
No. So obviously, well, the kite is smaller, so those rods wouldn't fit. And I don't suggest taking your brilliant rods from your 1.5 models and chopping them down because, nobody wants to do that. But for the example of the workshop, we're actually going to use the Skyshark P100s. They've got the perfect flex ratio for this kite and actually make it a lot of fun. And they're totally strong enough that you could fly it in quite a high wind without worrying about structural damage to the rods.
Now for the Dwight, do you prefer more bendy or stiffer rods for the leading edge and overall?
It's a good question. It depends what you want out of it. You can get a more precise and relaxed fly out of a bendier frame than you can with the stiffer frame. But the stiffer frame to me is much more fun because the kite it bounces around the air instead of flies, if that makes sense. Well, no, it does fly. That doesn't make sense, really, does it? But yeah, it's the bendier frame allows for more of a relaxed flight.
As a kite maker, do you have a favorite fabric?
Absolutely.
Can I answer this one for him?
Do you want to answer simultaneously and see if it's the same answer?
Yeah, although I could make myself look like a complete prat, but yeah. So, well, we'll say 3, 2, 1, go, and on go, I'll say the fabric. Now,
Okay.
3, 2, 1, go.
Icarex.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, I knew you would.
Yeah, Icarex is really nice to work with. It's like you can cut through it like cheese. It's so easy and it's super strong. It's stable. Yeah, it's just great. And I hear rumor that the color range will be expanding very, very soon.
Fantastic.
I could be wrong. It was just a rumor, but.
Yeah. So, Chris, have we got anyone asking any questions?
I'm scanning now.
How's yours coming on, Matt? What panel are you up to?
I'm on C2. I'm going much slower than yours because I had a bit of an issue where I didn't quite cut through both sides on my C5 panel. So I've now made myself go a bit behind.
Well, I am entirely down to black panels now.
Well, I would have expected that.
Right, so you can see here that there's been a lot of usage of this rule, and actually there's quite a small section remaining. But it's understandable that you can get both of these panels from this piece. So what I'd sometimes be tempted to do is just roll back to a piece where you can just take a nice long cut, and you've got the straight edge back on the rest of your roll, but an easier piece to work with. So
yeah.
Does that make sense? Do you do the same, Matt, or are you precious about your effects?
No, I'm not precious, but I use lots of odds and ends for like making scrap kites, as it were. So to be honest, I don't get fussy about my use of Icarex because I'm not producing kites where I have to worry. So I can be quite let's say greedy about my offcuts.
All right. So we have a few spectator questions.
Sure.
We have one from Mark Allen. Says my ripstop is heavier than Icarex. How will that affect the flight properties of the kite?
Good question.
So to be clear, also Mark, a very, very good friend of mine, very, very knowledgeable guy with everything engineering and physics. So it doesn't surprise me that he's asking this question.
So I could answer this question totally wrong. So my expectation would be that the kite will feel a little bit heavier on the lines. And by that, I mean, it might take a little bit more effort to get the performance of a lighter kite out of that. But what will also be a feature of that, so because the kite has more weight to it, it'll do your flat spin rotations, your axles, a lot nicer. And what you can find is that because you're making it out of a heavier fabric, you've probably got a little bit of a bonus in the higher winds. For a vented kite, sometimes it's cheaper and easier to use a heavier fabric. But yes, so I think what you'll discover from that is the kite will have more of a presence on the lines, but require slightly more effort to get the performance you want out of it. But that's not a bad thing.
I'm just noticing how many times you've said on the line, which I know is going to cost me down the road.
Speaking of cost, no, I'm joking.
Yeah. So just think one thing I wanted to introduce people to is the fact that the kite that Josh is actually building and putting together for us.
No, the one on the floor, the first ever one.
Oh, the first ever one. Okay, so the first ever Dwight, as it's been affectionately named, the Mini Pulse, is going to be raffled off. And the way we're going to do that is it's going to be given to someone that watches all of the live streams, so someone that we know has been present. And in order to enter, all we're going to ask you to do is make a £3 or equivalent. If you're in Europe, €3. I guess we'll make it a bit more expensive if you're in America. But you just got to make that donation to charity and show us that you've done it. It's charity of your choice, any charity, doesn't matter what it is. As long as you make that donation, you'll be and you watch all the live streams, you'll be entered into the raffle, and we will pick someone at the end, and you could win yourself a kite produced by none other than Mr. Mitchison.
I'm feeling kind. Let's make it both, even the one I'm building, so you have 100% more of a chance of winning one of these kites.
That's very kind of you, Josh. Thank you.
Oh, that. Okay, that's seriously generous. Okay.
I didn't say it wasn't going to cost you, Matt.
For all those listening, you just place your donation and you take a screenshot of your donation and send us the picture of your donation, and we will enter you in the drawing.
That's it. And the only other caveat is that you watch all 6 live, or however many live streams there are, and you join us every time we build for the next few episodes.
Another viewer question, Josh.
Yeah.
A viewer by the name of Albin would like to know, what will be the size of the rod you will be using for this kite?
Great question. I've got that written down. They will be, give me 2 seconds. So I have a sheet here with all the dimensions of the bridle and the rods, which I will pass over to these guys in a digital format so they can distribute it. But the rods will be 61 centimeters long.
You hear that, everybody? 61 centimeters long?
Yeah, I don't know what that is in inches.
It's gonna be around 30 inches, I think.
No.
25 inches, something like that.
So it's not 30 inches.
No, it's less. It's less than 30, give or take.
Yeah.
Josh, can you recommend a good source to buy the materials for this kite in Europe or America?
In Europe, Metropolis Drachen in Germany, a very, very good service. In America, Kites and Fun Things, I believe, stock Icarex. And the home of the Sky Shark rods. So, yeah, definitely Kites and Fun Things. I can personally
Josh,
say
I don't want to put a fear of God into you, but we're on just about the 40 mark in terms of watchers on Facebook right now.
Okay.
So hello everybody on Facebook. Thank you very much for joining in. It means a lot to us for you to be supporting us and taking part. So thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone.
So where are we up to on your panels, Josh?
I am just this second completed the C panels.
Oh, I'm miles behind you.
That's all right.
How many hours do you spend flying, Josh?
How many hours do I spend flying? So individually, I sometimes sneak away for a few hours on an evening. In over the past few months, I fly with a very, very good team, good bunch of guys called Team Fracture. We fly all day, every day when we're together, and that was most weekends over this year, actually. So yeah, I think probably about 20 hours a week.
And anyone that wants to know more about Team Fracture, the team that Josh is talking about, shameless plug here, but we have just released episode 2 of the podcast where we interviewed them. It's a very, very funny podcast. So if you've got an hour after this and you want to continue your kite build with some kite relating audio, then please tune in and have a listen.
Right, so I'm just about to move on to the B panels. And what you'll notice about the B panel, B1 specifically, the top of the panel is not straight. There is actually a slight curve in there, which is very, very important to the build of this kite. So I'm going to explain to you how I deal with that curve. It's not massively difficult, and it's not massively different to what we've previously been doing. It's just being aware of it. So again, same as before. Fold over your sail fabric. I'm going to try and stop saying Icarex, but force of habit.
It's all right, we'll let you off.
Good. So you can see that panel fits in that fold I've just made. So I'm just going to iron that in.
So, have you ever injured yourself making a kite? And do you have a funny story?
Yes, I will tell that story just after I've explained this panel. Right. So the panel is in place and I'm ready to start cutting it. Now, I'm not going to use a paperweight for this, only because the Red Bull was a joke. I don't use Red Bull as a paperweight. I needed a reason to have it on the kit list. So I do actually cut with the panels just sitting free. And what I'm going to explain here is, so this edge here, closest to the fold, is straight. And that's the line I'm lining up with the direction of the Icarex. Sorry, the fabric. So looking at this top line here, which I'm about to cut, that's the one with the curve in. And all you do there is you start with your curve and you just do it in small sections. So again, you line it up like you did before, but you're aware of where that curve starts to take the template away from the rule. So what I mean by that is, this is a straight section here, there's a straight section here, and the straight sections all along. But you can see that there is a point where the curve gradually takes the template away from the edge of the ruler. So all you're doing, you're cutting to the point where you can still see that there is some template. So that, for me, is here. And then all you do, keeping your template firmly in place, just move it along and repeat that process. So I can see that the edge of the template is here, into here. So again, just cut that up. And just repeating that process all the way along the top. That should be the top of this panel completely cut, but it's not. I've deliberately left a gap to show you what happens if you do miss a section to cut, but I will show you what happens with that afterwards. So, like before.
So you're effectively initially sort of freehand cutting.
No, definitely not freehand. So all you're doing is you're doing it in tiny sections. So you're moving
tiny sections.
Yeah.
So I'm just watching and cutting the remainder of my C panels very slowly. I'll be very interested to see how everyone else is getting on their end, because yeah, I'm going very slowly in comparison.
Right, so again, this is the straight edge. I've lined that up with the straight edge, making sure the panel is still in place. Nice and firm. And I can feel that my blade is getting blunt, so I need to change that blade after this cut.
Josh, your dad is saying hi in the chat.
Of course he is.
Hi, Josh's dad. Hi, Josh's dad.
Don't be nice to him. We won't be building.
Everybody is currently saying this is way more interesting than what's on TV.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I mean, no Coronation Street, right? So.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. So we're entertaining people all over.
We need a theme song.
We do. How many international viewers have we got? That's what I would like to know.
I don't know how to look at that data.
Well, let's have some shout outs from some international viewers.
Let me see here. We got Nico Revo. Who else we got? Stephen Reeve.
Hi, Stephen.
We got Peter Loop. Gary Tyrell.
Gary Tyrrell. Hi, Gary.
Yeah, I was thinking, who?
Hi, Gary. How's
Alan,
it going? Thank you for tuning in.
Alan
I'm just going to
Paxson.
jump in here.
Yeah, go on. Go for it.
And say that. So, what I said before about you've got to make sure you've got a clean cut all the way around your panel. If you sometimes miss a section, and it's easy to do, you can see it. So just lift your template off and look at that line before you remove the panels. And I can actually see right here, there's a small section I've just missed. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to line my ruler up with the edge of that and just continue that cut and just make sure that they are separated. And it comes straight off.
So just to recap, if you don't quite make the cut complete, template off and then just use your ruler to line up, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
What time are we on? I know we've penciled in for an hour.
We're 8:45. So yeah, if there's you take the lead, it's your time that we're taking up. So
well, I'm happy to extend as long as people are happy to watch.
I'm happy. I've got nowhere to be. So yeah, we can.
Okay, we won't take the mic. We'll say a maximum of 20 minutes extra for people that have penciled in till 9 o'clock.
Yeah, no problem.
We're sitting at 45 viewers.
Oh, nice. Did you say Alan Poxon's in there?
Yes.
Hi, Alan. I want to know if Alan got his Red Bull because he was adamant that it was either Red Bull or Scotch. Okay, so again, this is one of the longer panels. So just making sure I've got enough room to cut that panel. Measure it in there. That's enough room. Iron in that crease.
I'm currently facing a bit of a disaster in that I may not have left myself enough black.
Got a lovely roll of black here, if you want to borrow some.
Yes. Enough said about that, the better, I think.
I'm sure somebody was telling you the other day that they will order a Nicorex.
Yeah. I knew that was going to come back to haunt me. I know I've got some other black.
Right, so for anyone who hasn't seen previously, longer panels, you will line the edge, make sure that panel, the template is nice and firm on the fabric and a nice firm cut. But just before I do that, I'm actually going to change my blade. Little health and safety tip. If you do use regular scalpel blades, get a safety bin, because these things, you do not want them sitting in the trash for your local bin man. I've had many complaints.
Yeah, definitely. If you're using a lot of scalpels, doing some amateur surgery, definitely have a sharp spin.
So you asked me before, Chris, about my funny kite making injury story.
Yes.
It involves a scalpel.
Ooh.
We've all had those days where you're doing something that you enjoy and it's not quite going right. I was trying to teach myself applique, and it wasn't going perfectly. And in fairness, I shouldn't have been using a scalpel. And it went wrong at one point. I put my head into my hands and I said, I'm giving up with this. As I did that, I knocked the scalpel, which was sitting on the edge of the table like that, off, and it fell vertically into my foot and stuck out like a dart.
Ooh.
Nice. Nice.
Ouch.
Yes. I say funny. It's not really that funny. It was more painful.
No, yeah, I was going to say that was a quick trip to the local accident and emergency, I should think.
Indeed. It's just out of coincidence. Is anybody building along at the same time, or?
There's a few. Bill Final.
Oh, Bill.
Brilliant.
Bill is building. Now, I have to say a special mention to Bill, Mr. Bill Final. Bill is like my mentor. He introduced me, him and Graham at the Downs. They introduced me to the world of quadline kiting, and I am eternally indebted to him to bring me into this world, and for introducing me to Josh, etc., etc. So, Bill, at home, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for all that you have done for me thus far.
I will second that, and I hope you're doing well, Bill. And I bet I know what colours you're putting on as well.
Yeah.
He says he's going to be making one for Graham.
Oh, bless. I can't wait I can't wait for the day when we're all flying them at the Downs together.
You know what? That's going to happen. So to anybody, and this is a welcome invite to anyone, as soon as this quarantine is over, if you've built one of these, bring it to Dunstable Downs and we'll fly them all together.
Yeah, we'll set a date. We'll set an event. And we'll have Dwight Day up at the Downs.
So I expect Mr. Purcell to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I'm not going to cut the center panel. It's the same technique. I will do a small, at the end, show you how to cut the center panel if anybody's interested. But because this kite is going to be raffled off as well, this has got a special center panel. So this is actually going to be a genuine Kite Tech Pulse.
Ooh.
As the other one has the center panel, it would seem only fair for this one to have a center panel as well. So all my panels are now cut and ready to be stuck together.
Show off.
I've done it before.
So I'm just going to interrupt you and just I'd love to know where everyone else is at. Now, don't panic, everyone that's watching on Facebook Live and YouTube. The video will be saved to YouTube and we will transplant it onto Facebook and the On the Line page. So if you're worried that you're like me and miles behind, just starting on the black bits now, and Josh is going to raise a head, please don't worry. We will save the video so Josh can crack on, show us how to stick it together, and we can all go at our own pace, because I've got no chance of keeping up.
Right. Are you guys happy for me to continue?
There's a few people that are saying they're behind, but they are cruising along just nicely. Bill says you chose the wrong colors.
I chose the wrong colors.
He said wrong, Josh. All I have left is yellow, white, and green.
Oh no, that's not right.
That's you're gonna break the universe there, Bill.
I tell you what, let's be nice to Bill, shall we, Matt?
Yes.
If we get 100 likes on this video, by the next video, me and Matt will build Bill's.
Bill and Graham, yeah. You build Bill's and I'll build Graham's, and we'll build some red, white, and blue
in the right colours.
In the right colours, yeah.
So there you go. And if it gets, yes, I want 100 likes by the next video.
So everyone else out there watching, we want to make sure Bill and Graham get kites in the right colours because they're their team colours. So like the video, share the video, and
you just had a hurricane of likes.
Make it happen. Okay.
We just had a hurricane of likes. Oh, are we at 100 likes yet? Right. So
sticking.
Yes. So for this section, you need some adhesive. Now I'm using this ATG 3Ms tape, but you can use any form of adhesive that you wish. A lot of people use Pritt Stick, which is fine. It's not my preference, but yeah, you can use that. And some people I've seen they dab with a soldering iron to keep the panels in place, but I'm definitely not a fan of that because I don't like holes in my kite. But never mind. So what we're going to do first, you take all your panels and you're going to separate them into two sides. Now it doesn't matter because all the panels should be identical. But so take your B2 panel. You've got two panels, one left, one right. And same for the rest. So you take one of the double panels, one left, one right. And I'm just going to fly through that because we all know how to separate panels.
So anyone that was hoping to join into the Zoom room, we had a few people requesting because we're short on time.
Go for it.
And it will yeah, okay.
I don't see a reason why not to. Okay,
Chris, you're in charge. Anyone that wants to come and join us in the room, then yeah, feel free. Let's bring people in and see where they're at.
Okay, so you can see that I have now two sections of the hearts, two hearts cut and separated. So straight away, I'm just going to take one half and put it aside because we're not going to need that for another couple of minutes, as well as the center panel. So I like to build my kites from the inside to the outside. So we're going to start with the most inside panel, which is C1, which for me is white. And then the next panel inside that, C2, I went with black. So we don't need these panels for the minute. We're going to be focusing purely on these two and the process we use to stick it together, which is quite self-explanatory. The seams on the plan for the templates, they were 6mm, and the 3M's ATG tape is 6mm wide. So I don't use a full blueprint and layer the panels when I'm putting these together. I literally use the 6mm that the tape demands, which makes my process a lot quicker. Again, it's not for everybody, but for me, I find it works. So I know that black is darker than white, obviously. So you know that black has to sit on top of the white, because if the white was on top of the black, you would see the black through the back. So we're applying, so bear in mind, we're making the right side first. So this is the way that the kite would look up. You apply your tape to the white side first on this edge. So it's this edge we're taping because it marries up to this edge, which will be glued to. And all I'm doing is getting as close as I can to the edge and ideally on the very edge. Now, I always tape to the table first, so you've got something to have a resistance again for lining up your tape. So all I'm doing is going slowly along, making sure that that tape is flush to the edge, and then peeling off. And before you completely press it down, you still have some time to take it off if you've got it wrong. So you're checking, make sure that's right, and then just blemish it on with your finger. Do that 2 or 3 times and it should be nice and firm. So whenever paper templates are involved, there's always a margin of error. So what I like to do, I like to align one edge perfectly. So I will align the top edge completely or the bottom edge completely. So therefore, if you do have errors, you only have to correct on one side. And I'll show you why once we get further along. So for the next step, if you're using tape, you peel back, so you have now a row of adhesive. Just like before, and sometimes it's helpful for seeing if you place the panel on top of a piece of paper and it gives you a clear eyesight of your adhesive. So what you do from there is you literally line up the top of the panel and the adhesive. So once that's in place, double check that that is actually aligned. And then just literally follow the edge of the adhesive with the direct edge of the black panel all the way down. And you can see that that has come perfectly as it should. So again, blemish that down, and there's those two panels stuck together with a perfect flush edge at the top. Now, I was referring to the margin of error in paper templates before, and this is why you have to bear that in mind. So you may see that there is a slight overlap on the white panel to the black panel, or vice versa. It could be any panel. And that's because we've manufactured these templates by hand. There's a printing process involved, and they're made out of paper. You're cutting on a raw edge. There's going to be human error. And when I make my kites, I've got all my templates in metal. So I know that, and they've been laser cut, they're exact, and they're exact as they should be. You still get errors because you've still a human process involved. But don't worry, I'll show you how to correct that. So we're going to put the rest of the panels together first, and then we correct that at the end before we add the upper and lower B panels. So the next panel in the line is dark gray. So marry it up to the edge, make sure it fits. It does. And again, the black is darker than the gray, so the black will sit on top of the gray panel. So you're applying your glue or your tape or whatever. Stick it to the table first and just follow that line along the edge. Check that you're along with the edge. It is. And blemishing it down. It's the same process for all of these panels. So there isn't any longer panels have a different technique. There is slightly different techniques you can do to make it easier for yourself, but the process is exactly the same. So we're peeling back. Again, laying on top of something lighter so you can see your adhesive. And you can rotate these if it makes it easier for you. I like to do it facing away from me or directly in front of me. Offer up that edge. The alignment's there, and follow your adhesive down.
For those of you in the chat, I just posted the Zoom room link. Please have a camera.
So we have Albin and Steffi. So let's bring them in.
Red Bull. It's always important to be refreshed when making kites as well. It's supposed to be enjoyable.
Yes, it's talking about refreshment. I'm going to have a swig of the tea that I've left. So it's nice.
I have two very healthy options, Matt. I have the very, very popular with me Red Bull, and the not so popular with the world Corona.
Would the Corona be your backup? That was actually my next question. Is we all know you love Red Bull, but if Red Bull isn't available, what is your backup?
Death.
Yeah, you got to remember he's from up north, so
yeah, it's borderline addiction at this rate.
Yeah.
No, orange juice.
Oh,
Did I hear you say we're pulling some people in to see what their progress is?
yeah, we should have Albin and
I don't think they have cameras.
That's all right.
Okay, well, Albin, if you've got a mic, then by all means, turn it on and say hello to everyone.
Don't even have to talk about kites.
So as you're sticking your panels together, I noticed that you're using tape. Do you prefer
Yep.
tape over adhesive, or do you have a certain
glue.
method?
So the tape I'm using is actually an adhesive. The yellow backer you can see is literally a carrier for the tape that's the adhesive that sits on it. It's almost like a glue.
Waddy wants to join us.
Brilliant, bring him in.
Definitely bring him in. Oh, here we go.
Welcome. He can't hear us yet.
Let's just unmute you.
Oh,
Hey, how's it going?
it's going right. How are you?
Well, very good, very good. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I got your Chromecast on my TV, so I just had to turn that all down.
So we don't have some ridiculous feedback. So have you been building along? I take it you're in a laid back stance, so
Welcome,
there's
Waddy.
been no building.
No, I just been watching. Fun to watch. Good to see how other people build stuff.
Yeah, because I think everyone watching's probably seen your videos on YouTube.
I know that's where I got my start.
Nice.
Definitely, I would say the I don't know what you would call it, but it's like there's lots of it's like a mosaic type kite that.
The like fidget spinnery one.
Yeah. That's the fidget spinner. Yeah, that's definitely that sort of gave me a bug, and started the desire to start building for sure.
Yeah, that's a lot of time invested into a kite.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pieces, lots of little ones.
Yeah.
I watched that video a dozen or more times.
Oh, cheers.
So, have you got any questions for us? Is there anything you want to know?
I mean, I was kind of curious about the curve bit. I guess my one question would be like if it was more of a curve, like a more pronounced curve. It seems like that ruler approach would be a little bit difficult to deal with because you'd have to move it so frequently with a tighter curve. So I wonder how you would do that if you're doing like a circle or something like that.
Well, like I was saying before, the other kites that I build with more profound curves in, I get my templates produced in metal. I have a friend who can do that for me very, very easily. And I don't like using paper templates. So I guess I've never really experimented much with different techniques of that because I've always found going to the metal templates to be much, much easier. Yep. But that's just personal laziness, I guess.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I do the same. Not with metal. I'm not quite that fancy, but I just have some like hard pressed cardboard that's like thick enough to cut against, and I just do it that way. But,
we're not all lucky enough to have a friend called Dwight that will knock up.
Yeah, I'm sitting here like, man, stuff out of metal. That's awesome.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I want metal templates.
Yeah. We all do. So we'll put Dwight's email address at the end. And
no, do not. I wasn't meant to mention it was him.
I ship these big pieces of metal across the other side of the world. That'll work great.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be cheap.
Exactly. Yeah. So where are we up to on the sticking, Josh?
I'm just at the part now where I was explaining how to deal with any excess or over.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to pin the top cam again so we can get a clear view?
That would be helpful, wouldn't it? There we go.
So you can see that this white panel and the black panel have actually gone over the edge. And again, like I said, that's down to human error and we can't be perfect about it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how I go about correcting that. And what I actually know is, because I've built a few of these now, extending along this line, this curve, this length from here to here is the exact length it needs to be for your B2 panel to go on. So this panel aligns up with here, and then directly here goes the center panel. So what I'm going to do, just looking at the overlaps, the lines continue straight for 2 panels and meet up at the end. So therefore, you know it's going to be pretty much bang on for what it needs to be. So pressing down with the rule, making sure that the line is constant from the straight end following these 2 panels to the very end of this panel. You're just going to take that bit of excess off. So just sliding along with your scalpel. And it's literally a few millimeters, not even a few, but 1 millimeter of Icarex. And then you've got your nice clean flush edge, which is ready for the next section. And it's as easy as that. Yeah, it's getting warm in here. Let's go open this window. Oh,
So I just had a question to me directly. Somebody has asked.
Yep.
There's marks on the template. Sorry, he's not sure which side Josh is actually taping. There's marks on the template, but is it the top or the bottom?
Ah, right, yes, sorry. I probably skipped that. So the template for what you're taping is actually irrelevant because this is your left side, that's your right side. The panel is still the same, flipped. And Icarex is equally coated on each side. So whatever side you do, it's exactly the same. It's completely irrelevant. But when it comes to actually taping them, so if you align your templates, you can see which edge you need to tape. So there's these boundaries which have been left on for seams for you to tape, and that becomes your sewing point. So if you line up your templates, so C5 and C4, you can see that this is the overlap between those two. And you're overlapping them in that stance. So that margin is covered by the panel next to it. But what you can do, if you have a lighter color for C4 than C5, you can just reverse that so that the margin sits on top instead of behind. Does that explain the question? Or have I took that the wrong way?
I mean, I understood. Let me just see. Yeah, thumbs up. So,
great.
Excellent.
Okay. So the next section, once you have the inside of the kite, so this again is the right side. You have your B2 panel to go on and your B1 panel to go on. So just offer those up before you tape anything, and that actually shows you what the kite will look like once it's complete half. For this section, it's really, really important to start from the inside and work to the outside for the same reason that we had before. There could be overlap. It's easier to get rid of the overlap on the outside than it is the inside, because then the inside won't measure up to what the center panel should be. But that'll become apparent in the next stage. So what I'm going to do, it's the same process, only across multiple panels. Starting at the inside, you're going to offer up the tape on the inside seam and just follow it down. And because the B2 panel is black, it's darker, it can sit on top of everything as opposed to behind it. But if it was going behind it, you would just flip this and reverse the process.
Just also just doing a little shout out here. We've got watching on YouTube. We've got Stefan, who's in Zeebrugge in Belgium, watching, and we've got Vasily in Crete, who's watching. So thank you to them for tuning in. Much appreciated.
Right, so that tape is on there now, and same as before, just double check it doesn't run past any edges. can see it doesn't, so I'm happy to blemish that on, run the finger down, and you know that's going to be safe. So this is the section I was talking about, making it easier for yourself, is do this in stages. So if you pull that entire backer off, you've got a full length, which is sticky, and it's going to get caught on something, and it's just going to make the process a little bit difficult. So what I do, remember, starting from the inside, as I do it about 30 centimeters at a time, and just work with that, and just same as before, meet the edges, follow the edge of the adhesive all the way down. There we go. Double check it's right on the reverse side. You can see the stick line. You know it's right. And then
so what he just said, would you have done this a bit differently if your bottom panel was dark grey? Because then you would want it behind the black panels, but in front of the yellow panel. So the taping gets a bit complicated.
Exactly. And as I said, if that was the case, I would flip this over and just do the reverse of it. So as if it was the left side on top, you would just do it top line there, and then apply it, and then just throw over your panel, throw over the other side. It becomes your right hand side. So effectively reversing the process.
Okay.
I think the complication though is that you have the black and the yellow, right? You want it in between the black and the yellow, so it's like you'd want it on one side on the blacks and then open up the seam a little bit for the yellow, and it's kind of like weird.
Yeah, of course that would be the ultimate way around it. For a beginning process, I wouldn't want to complicate people too far, but yeah, like you say, you can peel away and then reset it on top for that transition through the different colors. Of course, it's a very good point.
Okay, so is that one panel left to go?
That is one panel left to go, and then we have half a sail.
Wow.
So, same as before, starting from the inside, you're going to apply your tape all the way along, matching the edge of the panel. And so, in reference to what you were saying before, perfectly valid point. If this was a lighter panel, I could, before I applied this, I could peel the back forward and then apply just to the grey and the yellow, and then reset that above the top. So therefore, it's kind of sandwiched in between the panels, and you don't get that colour mismatch. So check that's gone right. Yeah, perfectly on. Once again, blemish that down. And this is where a bit of space helps. So you can sit the kite over the edge of the table if you want for this. And this is the curved panel. So it's really important to get this the right way up, because if you put the curve on there, you see that it's naturally pulling away from the top of the kite. You have to get the straight edge for that. And look at the panels. If that confuses you, you'll see the way they line up. So starting from the center, peel back there. Again, about 30 centimeters. Do it in stages. Matching the edge. And follow that seam all the way down. So what's happened there because I've let go of that, it's gone and naturally set by itself. And what you can do, as long as you haven't pressed it too tight and it's going to ruin the process, and actually it can stretch the fabric quite easily doing that, you can just softly peel it back. You see there, it's pulling this black panel away already. So just be careful when doing that to make sure you don't separate all the panels. Just once you're there, just realign them again. And there you go. So that's almost one full side of the sail complete. But what you can see, and again, this goes down to what I was saying before about human error and manually making your templates. There's an equal overlap of the edge. And you can see it here. It's in the yellow panel against the black. I don't know if it's very clear.
Yeah,
there you go. You can see it there.
See that, yeah.
So that looks quite frustrating, and it looks like there's a severe problem. But actually, the easiest way to deal with that, because you know these points are the furthest out points of the kite, it's just literally a case of a line with your top and bottom, and it sits on a straight line. Again, same as before, you can see that straight line running down in sections because it's quite a long panel. Just run up. And then you see that that has aligned itself again. And that is one half of the sail.
Very tidy.
To do the other side, it's exactly the same, just mirrored.
Yeah.
Same process, same amount of time. Yeah. Just remember you're making a left side instead of a right side. Yeah, so that's about it for sticking the sail together. I could show you the left-hand side, but it is the same.
I don't think we need to go to take up the time to do it, because exactly what you said is the exact same process.
The last thing I will go through, only because it's the point where you actually see the kite, is the center panel. So, and it's exactly the same. I've gone with a black center panel. So you can see that this is going to sit on top of the white slightly. So because it is a darker panel, it sits on top. Same process. Run down, double check, it's clear. And then for this one, and again, it's so everything lines up. You start at the trailing edge, the bottom hand of the kite. So lining up this bottom corner, trailing edge of the kite, that fits there. Run it along. Make sure that's right. And just blemish it on. And that is completely half of the kite.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, what we like for time? Are we going to try and do the Dacron bits, or are we going to save them to next week?
I think probably best if we save them until next week, and then we can do the entire trailing edge as one process of the video.
Yeah. Okay. That's absolutely perfect. So I think we're done from a building point of view. Is there anything that people want to go through? Any questions?
How many likes are we on? Is Bill getting his kite?
Oh yeah, interesting. I mean, we've currently got 43 people on Facebook.
Still watching, yeah. Fantastic.
YouTube, not so popular. But have we got any questions, Chris?
I'm looking. I've answered most of them. Not really a question, but about a dozen people have sent their deep appreciation for your very colorful socks.
Yeah, shout out to Happy Socks, you know, it's great. Yeah,
I can't wait to go through all the comments later on when the video is over. I want to show my shocking progress. So unfortunately I didn't continue building when the taping was going on. So I've got a very limited amount of panels cut out.
We can't actually see your.
No, I'm gonna switch here. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I've got a few done, but I don't work anywhere near as far. So have people got pictures of where they're up to? Can we? Is that even possible? Can we see pictures of where people are at?
If they drop them in the comments box, we should be able to see. I love the colours you've gone with, Matt. They are brilliant.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. It sort of reminds me of another set of kites. I think there must have been some subliminal messaging going on there.
I couldn't possibly say.
Yeah.
If anybody does get stuck, feel free to send me a personal message. I'll be more than happy to help.
That's very, very kind of you. And again, you can contact us through the page, anything like that. If you have any questions about anything else.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty much there.
I think that seems so. What time next Sunday? Same time?
Same time.
Yeah. So 8 p.m. GMT, 8 p.m. UK time, and which I think the only other one I know equates to 1 p.m. No, 3 p.m. Michigan time. that's all I know. But yeah, don't worry, we'll keep Pacific you posted.
Time.
Again,
West
for anyone,
USA is noon.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, for anyone again who asked the question previously, Metropolis Drachen in Germany or Kites and Fun Things are perfect sources of these materials if you want to get access to them.
And if you're in the UK, then they should contact Kite Tech.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so Josh has got bits and pieces, things like end caps, bits you might need down the line. So if you do want to get hold of them, or there's bits and pieces you're struggling to get hold of, then message us, message Josh, and we'll do our best to source the materials for you. I think that just about sums it up. I want to say a massive thank you, first of all, to Josh for his time.
More than welcome, mate.
He's been very, very generous in putting the plans together and supporting all the questions that we've had behind the scenes. He's always prompt for testing the video and everything like that. And yeah, can't thank you enough. Chris, there were some great questions. Thank you for being a brilliant co-host. Again, I couldn't do it without you. Everyone that's joined us, everyone that's watching at home, we're doing it because we all love kites. It's as simple as that. So if you've listened to the podcast, if you're on the page and you're liking things on the page and you're supporting us, we cannot thank you enough. So if you like this content, then give it a share, tell everyone else about it, and we will be with you next week for part 2.
And please share with us what you're building. We really want to see that.
Our page, and please like this video.
Yeah, we want to see lots of pictures of your builds in progress.
Yes, flood our page, please, with your pictures.
Perfect. Right, everyone. Thank you very, very much, and we will see you soon.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.